Okay, so you want to mine Bitcoin, but you don't know where to start. That's who our guest is today. He's Ryan Nuckolls. He's of Pumpjack Power / Crypto Power, and then Dig, a new company that sort of focuses on all these different aspects about how to mine Bitcoin, how to get off the ground, whether you're on a greenfield site or you're sort of like working on an older site, repairing, retrofitting it for Bitcoin mining. There's tons of questions that I get all the time from listeners and from people just in the industry in general, like how to go about building a Bitcoin mining site. And Ryan is one of the best people to talk about for that. So we brought on Ryan Nuckolls. Thank you to Ryan for joining the show. As the other shows we've had during this month, these were filmed down at Consensus 2024, along with CoinDesk. So these were filmed live there. Before we get into the program, we want to thank Foreman Mining and CleanSpark for being the sponsors for the Mining Pod. Thank you to both of them, and you'll hear advertisements for both of them during the program. Okay, on to the show.
Hey listeners, let's talk about revolutionizing your mining operation with Foreman. This isn't your average management tool. It's an all-in-one solution for reducing costs and significantly boosting your revenue. Foreman brings a cutting-edge dashboard to your fingertips, empowering you with automated energy strategies. This means not only curtailing around real-time prices, but also strategically enhancing your profit margins through demand response. It's about leveraging energy efficiency to its fullest potential. With Foreman, you get a system that scales with your business, inventory management for assets, infrastructure integration, and business intelligence. Foreman elevates the cash flow and production of your entire operation. To see how Foreman can redefine your mining operation standards, visit foreman.mn. With Foreman, you're not just managing a mining operation, you're setting a new standard in the industry.
Accelerated by Compass is the premier accelerator program for Bitcoin mining sites at any stage of development. Our managed services provide expert guidance in site procurement, construction, energy agreements, and mining operations. Compass helps clients meet timelines and expectations for operational excellence, from greenfield to retrofits and everything in between. Don't just mine, excel. Visit compassmining.io now to discover how Accelerated by Compass can power your success.
Are you a retail or institutional investor interested in Bitcoin mining companies? The Miner Mag brings you free data and analysis from all major NASDAQ-listed Bitcoin mining operations to know who stands out. Check out visualized metrics and data-dependent stories at theminermag.com. Hello and welcome back to CoinDesk Live from Consensus 2024. We're coming to you from the CoinDesk podcast studio, founded in 2013 with the first institutional-grade Bitcoin wallet. BitGo is the gold standard in custody, staking, and settlement. Today, BitGo supports over 800 coins and processes 20% of all Bitcoin transactions by volume. Check them out at bitgo.com. Okay, we're going to jump over to our conversation today. Ryan Nuckolls, thank you for joining us today. You are the co-founder of Dig Infrastructure Group, and then Pumpjack Power, and I'm blanking on the last one.
Crypto Power.
Crypto Power. Okay, well, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us today here in Austin, Texas. You're an Austin native, so tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got into the Texas energy market, and then we're going to dig into Bitcoin mining as well as like the larger conversation for today.
Beautiful. Well, thanks for having me. Again, my name is Ryan Nuckolls. I'm one of the co-founders of Pumpjack Power and our subsidiaries created specifically for data operators Crypto Power. I'm also the co-founder of a company called Digital Infrastructure Group. So we're kind of a conglomerate of companies. We do energy management, site development, construction, asset management services, kind of split between all of our companies. And so we really offer a nice turnkey solution for data operators looking to plug into the Texas ERCOT grid. About myself personally, I'm a 10th generation Texan, born and raised in Austin, Texas. Been really fortunate to see Austin kind of grow up from this like really small, sleepy kind of hill country town into this like big megatropolis now, and it's really cool to be a part of the Web3 blockchain crypto community. I myself have been in the industry since 2011. I'm a big poker player in my early online poker.
Oh no way, I didn't know that.
Oh yeah.
Okay, there's a lot of. We'll talk about poker in a little bit then.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
So I've been around Bitcoin a long time. Been very fortunate to obviously work in the energy industry, and now how they've kind of intersected, I've really focused my career and my company's efforts on kind of being at that intersection and helping data operators optimize infrastructure and energy.
Okay, let's go through the companies again. So it's Dig, Digital Infrastructure Group, Pumpjack Power, Crypto Power.
Correct.
And then was there one other that I'm blanking on?
We also have another sister company called Power Infrastructure Partners.
Okay.
And so they build electrical lines, substations, poles, wires, kind of electrical EPC company.
So walk me through how every single one of these companies works within the Bitcoin mining infrastructure layer.
Absolutely.
I think a lot of people, when they hear about Bitcoin mining, they still think like someone just mining in San Francisco with their laptop.
Yeah.
But now we're playing with the big boys and the power leagues. You guys are actually working on building out new generation and utility lines. How do your companies fit into that?
Yeah, absolutely. To give a simple background on the companies, in 2015, my brother-in-law and I kind of hatched an idea to create a power provider that's solely tailored to the oil and gas industry. And so Pump Jack Power was the first kind of turnkey solution for oil and gas operators to basically optimize electricity within the ERCOT grid. In about 2018, we were kind of getting our first round of calls of data operators trying to go plug into West Texas. And so the Bitcoin mining industry really kind of blossomed into that year into 2019. And so we really saw the need to kind of give the same turnkey solution in the industry for energy to data operators. And so Crypto Power came into the market, about a year later. And simply what we do with those two companies is we serve two different industries, but basically the same people within both companies. And we work with groups that simply want to not only mine Bitcoin and process data in the ERCOT grid, but we really teach people how to obviously mitigate costs, but to optimize their infrastructure and creating additional revenue streams. So that's kind of Pump Jack Crypto Power. About a year and a half ago, I saw the need to continue that kind of turnkey solution for infrastructure. And so Digital Infrastructure Group was created to do site development and construction and asset management services. So if you're a data operator and someone's looking at you and saying, hey, I want to invest and get into Bitcoin mining, you guys go start a company. Obviously, you need help and support and solutions of how to go optimize and build your infrastructure. And so DIG simply works with investment groups, data operators, Bitcoin miners, AI companies, traditional data centers. And it might be site development, it might be construction solutions or an asset management services. So we have a kind of a big toolbox to pick and choose out of. But really love what I do. And the industry is absolutely booming here in Texas.
Yeah, it really is. I think like the energy part is probably what we're going to zero in on today, but I do want to talk about that last part with DIG. What sort of services do you guys offer? We've had a few different other companies that offer like full stack solutions, but I definitely want to hear like what you guys sort of offer for Bitcoin mining. And then you also mentioned like AI, HPC in there.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're a data operator and let's say that, you want to go develop a 20 megawatt project in Texas, essentially you call Digital Infrastructure Group. We have a sit-down meeting, understand the scope of budget and project that you're trying to go develop, and we go put it together for you. So the first steps are site development services, where basically we assist you getting your interconnection agreements, your land agreements, all your permitting done. And then once that's all completed, you're free to move into construction. And so if you obviously elect to use our construction services, we're a general contractor. So we do everything from civil construction of, installing cranes for containers or building a physical building, for an advanced solution. So we go all the way through the construction into asset management services. So we provide a facility maintenance support, running ASICs, repairing ASICs. We also just launched a cybersecurity division, which is super cool. So we have the capability of protecting firmware at the facility level all the way through the back office. So again, DIG's there really just to be a full turnkey solution and help the industry optimize and get plugged into the grid.
Love it. Okay, let's talk about energy and Bitcoin mining. We'll go through, just for like the audience sake really quick here, what I'm trying to dig into is to understand why Bitcoin mining needs all this energy. I mean, just this week, we're here, consensus in late May, and there's already like peak generation or peak demand on the Texas grid for the month of May. I think it was like 77 gigawatts of demand. So Bitcoin mining is a large percentage of that and is a growing percentage of it. And I think people are a little confused on that. So I want to dig into like why Bitcoin mining needs energy generation and why a utility provider like Pump Jack got interested in that game in the first place. Yeah. So maybe let's rewind the clock a little bit to like 2018, 2019. What were some of the signs that you saw that there was going to be such a large demand for power solutions for cryptocurrency miners at the time? Yeah, I mean, if you really look at the historical energy pool of the Texas grid system, you had some large manufacturing loads, you had some oil and gas operators that would pull down. All of a sudden, here comes data operators and Bitcoin mining, and all of a sudden, these interconnection requests started to jump up of just massive power demand.
And so, it's wild to look back from that time till now and just seeing 5 years of growth, and it's absolutely massive. Texas has close to 15% of global hash rate. It's estimated it could easily jump up to 20 to 25% here within the next 10 years. And so just seeing that, me personally being in Bitcoin so long and knowing eventually it would kind of get this, I already kind of knew it was going to happen, didn't know exactly when. I was very fortunate to be in the energy utility industry and being able to serve that kind of project and solution to people. But where it's going 5 years from now compared to what it was 5 years ago, it's literally going to double, if not triple, the consumption in the grid. And more energy, more reliable consumption is better. Bitcoin mining, it really is some of the most reliable baseload consumers of electricity. And so when we have reliable baseload consumption within the grid, it helps alleviate the duck curve, right? And so within our generation mix, the more and more renewables are coming online. So energy rates are going to spike, things are going to tighten when it's not always, sunny or windy, and so intermittent power is becoming more a part of our Texas grid system, but Bitcoin miners are basically incentivized to optimize electricity generation by consuming so much electricity, where we get to continue to build more power and build a more resilient infrastructure grid in Texas. And so that's really why, at a political level, Texas has been such a champion of this industry, simply because of the benefit it gives to local communities around the grid.
When you first saw these deals, what was your initial thought about them, and how were they due diligence at the time, since they were sort of new, right? How did someone in your position look at this and be like, this is something we should probably put a time and investment in towards?
Yeah.
Because it's still fairly speculative. Last 2 years, there's been a lot of people who have failed. And then 2018, 2019, very new to walk into Texas. I think just for people's backstory about how this new demand came to Texas grid, I'd be interested to learn more about that. And then we'll jump into some deal stuff.
Yeah. One of the first big deals, and shout out to Gideon Powell for this. The Holder Ranch project that he obviously put together, that was really one of the first large, well-noted projects. There had been some existing Bitcoin mining in the West Texas area, but nothing really at massive scale. And this was like 2016, 2017, and so that really kicked off, a frenzy of what people could really go do at scale. In Texas, just simply because we have just such a massive energy base, such resilient infrastructure, and so we have obviously a vast amount of land. So Texas really poised itself early on in capturing this kind of open season type mentality of, hey, come build your business here, and we're obviously pro business here in Texas. So seeing that was very fortunate, and I just knew we had to get into that space and create a specific vertical to serve that kind of client. So Crypto Power, originally, our investment base was kind of like, hey, a little risky community. So it took some time to convince them. And then finally, about a year and a half later, we convinced them and came into the market, and very blessed. And so, again, 5-10 years from now, this state is going to possibly double its hash rate, which I firmly believe. And all that's going to do is create a more resilient grid system for future generations.
In the competitive world of Bitcoin mining, one name stands out: CleanSpark, America's Bitcoin miner. At CleanSpark, efficiency isn't just a goal, it's our standard. Our sophisticated facilities are built and led by expert teams who care about Bitcoin and the communities we work in. Scale? We've mastered it. Our large-scale operations have set us apart in the industry as examples of community-oriented building. Our track record speaks for itself. We navigate the complexities of the new economy with precision and with skill, continuously achieving operational milestones. Curious about how we do it? We invite you to discover the story behind CleanSpark's success at cleanspark.com.
So let's pretend like I'm coming to market. I want 20 megawatts of power. What are the sort of questions that you ask me as the person trying to purchase that power? And what are some things that you do with contractors or with your legal counsel or whoever to source that power for me, create a holistic package for me? I'm just thinking from an operator's perspective, when they're walking in to talk to someone like a Crypto Power, what are some questions you'd throw their way?
Well, the first conversation really starts with Dig and developing that 20 megawatt site. So I simply ask you, are you a hosting provider? Are you a direct miner? A little combination of both, because you can structure your infrastructure around how to, serve multiple lines of business within your facility, right? One section of the facility can have a meter for hosting, one section can have direct mining, and so optimizing at a very starting point of understanding what your goals as an operator are is the first step. Second is really just understanding your financial budget and putting some realistic, everyone always wants that 200-300 megawatt facility or, and to grow crazy amounts, but they have to understand, hey, this is the infrastructure side. This is kind of what the energy side requires. There is CapEx involved. So just kind of bring people on an even playing field of understanding what a budget. And then lastly, we understand the budget and we make it go happen. So we go put together the site, get your land agreement, your interconnections done, get everything in your name, and then we start construction. Usually on a 20 megawatt project, you can have something, up and energized in a few months, depending on weather. So, we're very transparent in all the costs that we do as an infrastructure provider. No hidden fees or overages, always on the same plane of understanding where things are. Then once the site's built out, we look at you as a team and say, hey, do you need site management assistance? What level? There's various tools from facility maintenance to ASIC management to repairs. And so being able to provide that full turnkey solution is a big deal. And then right before we're about to turn on the facility, obviously you need energy. So this is really the biggest one that having to educate people on and just understanding, hey, this is what an energy deposit does. This is why you should buy a fixed block of energy to hedge some of your hosting rates maybe, and then maybe you can float the real-time market with your ASICs and play the energy arbitrage game.
Yeah.
So it really starts on a conversation of knowing where you want to be, understanding what type of operation you want to run, how you want to optimize, and we basically create that solution and put it into motion, build it, operate it, energize it, protect it with our security software, and then, be your true operational partner for years to come.
What kind of paperwork or due diligence or prep work do you like to see someone who's coming to you for help have done beforehand?
Again, everyone always wants to go conquer the moon, which is not a bad thing. This industry has obviously got very bright eyes and people have done amazing things, but it all comes down to, credibility, who you are as a person. Secondly, obviously comes with how capitalized you are to go accomplish your goals. But at the end of the day, everyone is always trying to, grow. And so I'm always, a helping hand, happy to always talk about information. I'm not kind of guy that holds my cards to the chest, I always put my cards on the table and very honest. So it's just working with good people who are obviously, professional and funded and credible and, here to serve the industry in the best way possible.
For the capital side of things, that's definitely like a tricky part. Last cycle, we saw a lot of people come in from different angles. Mm-hmm. They raise capital to be able to get it off the ground. They created debt instruments using like the forward projections for how much they're going to mine to be able to like get their mine off the grid. Mm-hmm. What sort of situation you like to see people come into with capital, or are you guys kind of agnostic to that? You don't care too much that people come in with different structures for making a Bitcoin mine, because these are obviously very capital intensive, maybe is the word to use or the phrase to use.
Yeah. It all simply starts with who's the management team? How credible are they? Are they experienced? Think about the data operating industry. You might have a team of, a lot of finance guys, maybe some engineers, few operations people, but very few groups. I mean, obviously the super majors, have put great teams together. I can name, plenty of them, right? But usually in startups and mid-tier type operations, there's a hole that needs to be filled within the team. And so understanding and getting them to understand, like, hey, we're here to provide that is kind of the first step. The second step really is just kind of being honest and putting your cards on the table and figuring out, hey, what's your real capital budget? What are you funded for, right? It's okay to always keep trying to grow and raise money, but to actually develop something the right way and make sure you're not digging yourself into a hole. What's your budget? Let's operate it off it, put it together. And so, we really, obviously you don't want to go too much into the weeds with people, but it's simply just understanding what your budget is and what we can optimize within your sandbox.
Need ASIC help? Check out Vitamine, one of Bitmain's certified repair shops located in Washington State with satellite offices in Colorado, Oklahoma, and Texas. PSUs, hashboards, immersion setups, in and out of warranty repair, Vitamine has you covered. Want to train your technicians? Bring Vitamine to your site for hands-on training in the art of ASIC repair, complete with Bitmain AMTC certification. Contact Vitamine today at dan@vmasic.com. Again, that's dan@vmasic.com. When you think of ASIC repair, think Vitamine.
Texas has just been absorbing all this demand from Bitcoin miners. We mentioned that there's between 75 to 90 gigawatts of generation every year, or at any moment for energy in Texas. Bitcoin miners are taking about 1 to 2%. You can probably correct me if that's wrong or not, but it's a substantial amount of energy on the Texas grid. I'd like to know where we're going next, especially with a hot summer coming up.
Yeah.
What do you think happens next for generation for Texas? What do you think happens next for demand for the Texas grid?
In a very simple sense, I always tell people, Will, that peak mining season is pretty much from January to the end of April, and then October, November, December. We are entering peak demand season, meaning that it's obviously hot. People are more turning their ACs, consuming more energy. Curtailment season can be tough if you're not optimized to play that game, and that's really the big benefit of being in Texas is playing these energy arbitrage games via demand response and selling your blocks of energy back into the grid. And so my forecast for this summer is, it's going to get hot towards August, as it always does in Texas. Miners who are incentivized to participate in demand response programs are going to benefit. To give you an example, last August, Riot, cleared close to $30 million playing the energy arbitrage game last year in Texas. And a lot of people thought that it was selling, it was their demand response services. Only a small portion of that benefit they saw in August was from that. The rest was trading their energy back into the grid. So setting yourself up in a way to obviously deal with peak demand season can reap massive rewards. And that's what I think we're going to see this summer for sure.
This is probably one of my favorite conversations we've had on the mining pod, is talking about these energy markets, because I come from a Bitcoin world where I'm used to talking about Bitcoin blocks, Bitcoin rewards, all things with protocols. And I do enjoy those conversations, but more and more I'm learning about these energy markets and how complex they are. And I think it's just as difficult as learning about Bitcoin. So walk me through a little bit, what does it mean to be trading energy in the Texas grid? And we can even use a fake scenario of if you're a 50 megawatt miner, or maybe you have to be a certain size. But what does it mean to be trading energy on the Texas grid?
Absolutely. Texas, the ERCOT grid system is an energy island within the United States. We have a few small interconnections to the rest of the grid, but predominantly, we're a self-serving island called ERCOT, the Electricity Reliability Grid of Texas. In a simple sense, there's really three main markets that you buy electricity from in Texas. You have a forward market where you buy a fixed block of energy for a certain time and volume, right? That type of product is really more so beneficial to hosting providers, right? So you have to have on your hosting rate, you have a baked-in rate, guaranteed revenue stream. There's your energy, there's your OpEx, and there's your margin, right, for hosting. The other type of market is called the real-time market in Texas, and the real-time market settles every 15 minutes with the price of natural gas in Texas. So that can obviously go to zero and negative numerous times. A lot of times out in West Texas, there's so much energy generation and not enough transmission to get it to high-demand markets, where we see numerous times of the day where Bitcoin miners almost get free electricity to mine Bitcoin, which is super cool. The real-time also spikes, but using advanced mining software, such as Foreman, you can basically integrate software where it tracks the real-time power prices. And so once you hit a certain strike price, knowing where your break-even price for your ASIC is per megawatt hour, you can curtail yourself and basically sell whatever fixed position you have back into the grid. Now, what I usually advise people is to kind of have a hybrid approach where, if you're a 100%, direct miner with no hosting, maybe fix 50% of your energy to give some baseline stability, but trade the other volatility. And what I mean by that is, if you're 100% in the real-time market and it's like a take-or-pay situation, you don't necessarily have a block of energy to give back to the grid. So demand response is getting transmission capacity back to the grid. When you're trading and selling your energy, you're basically selling that fixed block of power that you have. And so in that example about Riot, a lot of that position that they made, that money was selling their fixed position at an obviously, premium price in the real-time market. So the last market's called the day-ahead market. That's basically a bid-in situation, and you get that price if you bid it in. Not necessarily something I advise for Bitcoin mining. You can make a little bit of money doing that, but mainly it's fixed blocks of energy, right, with wholesale trading desks and generation companies, and then floating the real-time in that take-or-pay, but knowing how to play that market via energy arbitrage and advanced software and energy management solutions.
Day ahead markets, is that typically where you see some of these like more sophisticated trading games happen, or is that wrong?
Yeah, so as an energy management firm, it's not necessarily our job to be actively trading in power markets. There's hedge funds on Wall Street. That's actually what they do. They trade spot markets. They buy a little bit here, sell it the next day. If it goes down, they lose money. Our business model is more so just take it as it comes and be an active energy management firm for the power, and knowing those market signals, right? Of, hey, today's going to be a 4CP day, a lot of demand. There's going to be a curtailment, right? Great time, communicate that to the customer. And hey, if they own a fixed block of energy, we know for the next 10, 12 hours that we can sell this block we bought for $38 a megawatt hour for $2,000 or $3,000.
Yeah.
You had a fantastic day. So not necessarily our business model to do active trading, but as the market presents itself and we see those opportunities, take advantage.
It's all blocks at the end of the day, isn't it? Okay, so I want to talk about why this matters, because I think a lot of people's eyes glaze over. They're like, okay, you can trade energy now as well, which is how the lights are on in here. But a lot of people aren't thinking about that. So when you're describing this to like your mom probably knows this because she's like 10th generation Texan. So I would say your mom, but maybe like a friend or someone who's not familiar with the energy market.
Yeah.
How do you describe what's happening in the sense to make it like beneficial or click? When I speak about it to people, I'm like, people trade energy and Bitcoin miners participate in this because it helps smooth out the grid. But how do you sort of describe it to people?
In a very simple sense, I always tell people that, Bitcoin mining infrastructure is almost a digital power plant, right? During the day, it sits there, it consumes energy, right? And the consumption of energy at a consistent 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, base load consumer types situation is the best for the grid, because most people use it in a very, volatile manner. And so these Bitcoin mines basically consume power when it's cheap, incentivize new power generation to come online and grow. And then obviously when things get tight, it's the fastest to respond to basically give transmission capacity back to the grid and sell whatever fixed blocks of energy it consumes for more people to consume it. So it is literally the greatest energy optimization tool ever invented for the Texas grid system. And what's crazy about the Texas grid system is way back in the early 1900s, ice factories were the first reliable baseload consumer in the ERCOT grid. That's basically what built out the entire ERCOT grid. These transmission lines were these ice factories. And so almost 100 years later, it's going to be these Bitcoin mining data, high compute data operators that are basically going to incentivize the build out of our modern grid system. And we're seeing it right now, which is super cool.
That's really interesting. I haven't thought about that. Okay, so how does Bitcoin mining fit into the general picture of different both generation sources and demand sources for energy on the Texas grid? Yeah. And what I'm thinking about here is there's peaker plants, there's now these battery systems, there's baseload generation across the board from nat gas to solar to wind. There's a lot of other stuff on like the demand side as well. But kind of lay out for me who else is in this Texas grid, and then let's talk about how Bitcoin miners kind of plug in there. Of course, going back to your point right there, like the Bitcoin miners are going to rebuild the grid. Like, who are they working with right now?
On the generation side, we're seeing more data operators start to go, behind the meter and take direct PPAs with generators. So now generators can start to forecast their, build out and expansion based with a reliable PPA. So that's kind of on the generation side. On the on-grid side with generation, more and more reliable baseload consumers are causing generators to be able to optimize transmission lines, don't have as bad as congestion. So transmission rates are getting more competitive. So again, Bitcoin mining really is just the greatest energy optimization tool, and generation and utility companies, see the big benefit. On a long-term planning approach, the utilities, are trying to optimize as much as they can in a short amount of time. There's obviously, a digital boom rush going on, digital energy rush, as I like to call it. And the best way that we as a company have been a big solution in the industry is really understanding from square one of what a consumer needs, what they actually are going to consume, make it happen. And a lot of people like to kick tires and overpromise things, and we've never had that approach. And so the transmission utilities, though, love that approach simply because there's so much power requests right now in the system, and trying to fish out, what's legitimate, what's not is a big headache. But I firmly believe, 5 to 10 years from now, Texas easily should have double the hash rate that we have, should be close to 25-30%. The only reason I believe that is, there's easily 50 to 60 gigawatts of power generation coming online in the next few years. Texas has over half of the future power plants in in America scheduled in Texas. And that's just a massive amount of power. So in the long term, I think we're going to see just continued flourishment. There's going to be challenges here and there, but as long as you're structured to optimize challenges into rewards, it'll be a good place to set up operations.
So you mentioned ERCOT earlier, and they're kind of like a quasi-government business. You can probably clarify that a little bit for me, but how are they viewing Texas energy generation right now? And then how are they viewing Bitcoin mining fit into that? The one thing I'd point people towards is these SARA reports that come out every 6 months or so, and they kind of detail what's happening on the Texas energy grid. They list all the different places that generation's coming from. They list different sources of demand. And last 2 years, we've seen Bitcoin being there. And it's pretty cool to see, like,
absolutely,
an S19J Pro being a thing they're calculating based on top of. I think it shows you how far Bitcoin has come into the grid. But tell me a little bit how ERCOT is thinking about both the demand and generation side for energy in Texas, and then how Bitcoin fits into that.
I do have to give a shout out to Brad Jones, the former president of ERCOT. He sadly passed away about 1.5 years ago, but he was really the first leader in the utility industry in Texas to fully stand behind Bitcoin, because this industry really came out of nowhere very quickly in Texas. It's over a multi-billion-dollar industry now in Texas, which is wild, and it's continuing to grow. But in the early days, no one really understood what this type of load was going to do to the ERCOT grid. And as we realized that, the right type of energy operators came into the system and, quickly realized that the reliability benefits of baseload consumption, Brad was the big promoter in getting ERCOT to realize, hey, we need to accept this load for what it is. We need to be supportive of it. They've created numerous types of programs to support it. So the Large Flexible Load Task Force, which is a great program within ERCOT. So ERCOT's pro Bitcoin, 120% pro data operators. It's just about building the right infrastructure to make sure that we're going to be in here for the long haul and be able to serve this blossoming industry of data infrastructure.
Definitely. Yeah, I think it's really cool to see Bitcoin actually built into a physical grid. And that's the thing I always talk about with people is like Bitcoin versus all these other tokens. And we're seeing lots of them here at Consensus. Bitcoin has a physical presence in Texas year-round. Consensus are maybe here for a week. Yeah. We love that. But Bitcoin's here year-round. We're actually mining on the ground in Texas.
Absolutely.
Okay, we only have a few minutes left here, and I want to talk about a few different headlines that have happened within the mining industry. So if you're not super familiar, conversational with what's happening with Bitcoin mining, first, go subscribe to the Mining Pod, and second, stick around for these last few parts. Let's talk about Bitfarms and Riot. So I won't ask you necessarily to give any secrets behind the scenes. I know you know a few, but in a general sense, what do you think about M&A in Bitcoin mining right now? Some baseline metrics for people who might need to know some context for that question. ASIC prices have not really moved since the bear market. They're still pretty low. Hash price still pretty deflated since the halving. Bitcoin halving was about a month ago. And I think there is a decent amount of cash, though, on some of these public market tables because of the run-up before the halving. So I'd say July of last year through December, a lot of money flew into public stocks. So you have an interesting situation for M&A. Are you seeing anything from your purview as both Dig and PumpJack?
I always relate to the oil and gas industry because that's where I grew up in. And you constantly see oil and gas operators in Texas engage in M&A simply to grow their foothold in producing oil or producing hash rate. And so, the big announcement of Riot trying to acquire Bitfarms, is a smart move. Acquiring more hash rate, acquiring a good infrastructure base is how you grow your business. And so, when you have competitive market prices that are kind of, sometimes a little stringent on the bottom line. You have to find creative ways to continue growth in those cycles. So I think, what we've seen on the energy and infrastructure side, we've seen some mid-tier, facilities start to get kind of gobbled up. But I think in the really kind of mid to long-term range, you're going to see some of these larger deals start to take hold just simply because it makes sense, and the scalability of two world-class operators coming together, usually good things are going to happen.
Do you think that the professionalization of Bitcoin mining is going to lead to more centralization, in the sense that these larger operators who've gone to a certain economy of scale are going to continue to gobble these smaller guys up? Or do you think there's a room for the smaller operators still?
I think the pleb miners will always kind of stick around in the sense of being able to be, quicker to market to buy newer ASICs and hash rate. I mean, obviously find a good hosting provider. But that kind of 1 to 5 megawatt startup that, is having trouble continuously getting capital, it's just tough to operate in the long term of continuously buying machines, reinvesting cash flow. But the mid-sized guys that have, healthy margins, have healthy revenue streams, you're really going to see the mid-tier type data miners really blossom into the next super majors, and the super majors will kind of start to consolidate together to create, maybe 1, 2, or 3 massive publicly traded companies, and that's just natural. But I think there's still room for the mid-sized guys to continue to grow. The smaller scale guys, as long as you have an attractive, management team and attention to capital, you should be able to, to get down the road. But at the end of the day, you have to have a, end game, and it's usually an M&A strategy to a larger operator.
Last question for you. If you had to pick anywhere in the world to mine Bitcoin, where would you?
Man, as much as I hate to say it, Texas is really the greatest place to mine Bitcoin in the entire world. I'm a Texas Bitcoin max, and I will be to the day I die. It's simply due to the fact that we have one of the most energy-rich places in the entire planet. We have great people in our state politics to support you, and the ongoing opportunity to come to Texas and build a Bitcoin dream is 100% here.
Love it. That's a wrap from the Mining Pod, live from Consensus 2024. Today, we're going to take a break. Jeff Wilser will be back on the other side of this with our sponsor, BitGo. Thank you to Ryan Nuckolls for joining. Go check out Pump Jack Power and Dig.